as we started out, I started working with them at home. One thing I discovered was, well, it was better for them to take one textbook and do it for 2 years than to keep doing a textbook every year. So my oldest daughter, when she hit the 8th grade, she had done the 7th grade book for 2 years, and she was ready for algebra, but they weren't teaching it. It happened that same year I got this MacArthur Fellowship, which said, okay, you got 5 years, you can do what you want, you don't have to look over your shoulder. So I went in to her school as a parent and started teaching her and 3 other kids who also had asked to do algebra. And so that's how the algebra project started. And then I took a look around and saw, well, here's some kids, my daughter and 3 others who are doing algebra, and here's some kids who are on grade level, and here's some kids who are below grade level. And my movement instincts kicked in, and I asked myself, well, what would it look and feel like, what would it take for all of these kids to be doing algebra? So that's how the algebra project started. That was in 1982. In the mid-90s, we were back in Mississippi, and I was working with the grandchildren and the great-grandchildren of the sharecroppers that we had worked with in the 60s. We started out in a middle school, and we had a group of 8th graders that had taken the algebra test for Mississippi, and I asked the principal of the middle school to walk with me over to the high school because I wanted a soft landing for them in geometry in high school. That was in 1996. And so I started teaching at Lanier High School, and I was teaching there for 10 years, from 1996 to 2006. I started out teaching a little geometry, and then they asked me to teach a full load. So that was 150 kids, 6 classes a day. And then they asked me if I would do some more algebra. So I did. And my kids did better on the statewide test, but I didn't ever look at that statewide test. What I did was make sure that the kids learned something. And if it took 6 weeks to teach that something, I took 6 weeks and taught that something. So what happened when they came to take the statewide test? What happened was they had learned to sit and pay attention and work at doing something. So they took their time on the statewide test, and they did better. So when the school asked us to do more with the kids with algebra, because I've been there already 6 years, I said, well, look, if you want these kids to do well, and this was the lowest performing school in Jackson, and Jackson is the lowest down there in Mississippi, and Mississippi is near the bottom of the nation. So I said, if you want these kids to do well, they have to double up on their math. They were in 90-minute periods, meeting every other day. I said, they have to do math every day for 90 minutes. You got to cut down the class size, and those of us who are teaching the algebra project, we need to meet together every day to figure out what we're going to do. So that began the idea of following a cohort of students for 4 years through their high school. So those students that we started in 2002 graduated in 2006. And what we were asking them to do was to step up to the plate, because you can't make them double up on their math for all 4 years. And even if they didn't want to, we were asking them to be willing to do that. Now on our side, what did that mean? It meant that we had to figure out what to teach and how to teach it so that they were willing to do it. Well, that idea of working with cohorts, and we worked with them not only in school, but after school, We visited their homes. We talked to their parents. We organized stuff for them in the summer. I took them wherever I went, right, to speak, so that they could hear that the issue they were dealing with was a big public issue. We took that program to different places. We took it to Miami and working with Haitian Americans there. We worked with the National Science Foundation. We got mathematicians interested in working with these kids. They developed materials for them, right? We have programs now in LA, Mexican Americans and African Americans. We have a program in El Dorado in Illinois with white Appalachian Americans. We have a program in Mansfield, Ohio, right, with rural Americans. We have a program in Ypsilanti County. We're working with universities, the University of Michigan, Ohio State, Southern Illinois University, Occidental College, USC. The issue that we're trying to say is there's a way to reach these students. We're working with students in the bottom quartile of the nation's failing schools. We're working with students who otherwise drop out of schools. And the issue that we're saying is there's a way to reach through to these students when they reach high school to get them to organize their peer community and to make it work for them, not against them. And it doesn't matter about their family situation. They're in school. They have to do something in school. They can decide that they want to do something for themselves, right? And so there is a way to reach through these students, right? And it needs support. Now, the other thing I want to say, and this has to do with the policy issue, this is that I just talked about what I think of as the internal issue, the issue of what I think of as an earned insurgency on the part of these students. But the country has to do something also. The country has to face up to the fact that since its founding, it has never committed itself to educating all the children in the country. And if I think about the civil rights movement, I think about the civil rights movement that with the sit-ins, we were able to get Jim Crow out of public accommodations. That was the message of the Freedom Rides. They made it crystal clear that as they moved from state to state, they wanted to be considered citizens of the nation, not citizens of the state through which they rode. The same was true about voting in Mississippi. The sharecroppers wanted to be considered citizens of the nation, not citizens of Mississippi for purposes of their right to vote. The same was true about the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party. When Fannie Lou Hamer went before the National Democratic Convention, she demanded to be considered as a citizen of the nation, to be able to participate in a national party structure, not as a citizen of the state of Mississippi. And the same has to be true for all of our children. They need to be considered for purposes of their education as citizens of this nation, not primarily citizens of the state in which they school. And for that reason, the Algebra Project and its offshoot, the Young People's Project, is advocating for a constitutional amendment that says that every child in this country is entitled to a quality public school education, and that what we need to do is overthrow what is currently the law of the land through the Rodriguez case, which says that there is no substantive right to an education at the federal level in this country. And there's a young man here, Javier, who has come from Chicago, who is a representative of the Young People's Project, and I hope as part of this Q&A about this issue that you will hear him. I think the best thing that the Algebra Project has done is that over the last 25 years, it has grown a group of young people who are taking on for themselves over the next 30 years the idea that they are going to grow in this country people who are ready to adopt and promote a constitutional amendment to say to the country that every child in the country deserves a quality public school education, and that right is protected by the Constitution of this country. Thank you.